Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you for all for joining us today. My business is Arise Adoption Academy, adoption resources, inspiration, support, and education. Adoption Options is an inclusive nonprofit adoption agency dedicated to enriching the lives of children, youth, and families. We provide education, placement services, counseling, and support for all members of the adoption community. I want to tell you a story about Brian. Brian was 4 years old when Child Protection removed him from his birth family due to substance abuse and domestic violence. Brian then went into foster care, and he moved over the next 2 years 4 different times because his foster family didn't feel like they could parent him. He then moved into our adoptive family with Chris and Lindsay when he was 6 years old. Chris and Lindsay struggled, but they felt like they had the support that they needed by the agency from us as their caseworker, from the Child Department of Social Services, and from his therapist. And when Brian turned 8 years old, they did adopt him. Unfortunately, this is not a happy ever after story. And all those pre-adoption services that Chris and Lindsay had that they felt that they were successful stopped the day the adoption finalized. And then they struggled finding any kind of resources that would help him after that. When Brian turned 13, he started running away from home, he got arrested, and he was failing out of school. Chris and Lindsay called our agency crying because they were distraught that they didn't think that they could parent Brian any longer. And in fact, because they had exhausted all the resources that were available to him, they felt somebody else was going to be able to parent him more than they could. This is not an uncommon story, and in fact, it's more common than not, where adoptive families, after they finalize an adoption, where all those services were in place before the adoption occurred, they're no longer available to them. There are 130,000 adoptions in the United States annually. However, 15 to 20% of those adoptions and those children fail out of their adoptive family. That's 20,000 plus children re-entering the child welfare system or having to live someplace else. The #1 reason that adoptions fail is simply a lack of resources. Why this is heartbreaking, and after 27 years of doing this business, is because for children, some of these children, this is the only family they've ever known. And for the families, they feel a sense of shame and guilt because they have failed themselves and their child. This is what they believe. But what if I told you that Arise Adoption Academy could solve that problem? And we could actually save families like Brian's from a disruption down the road. By offering a one-stop shop where they can actually access resources after their adoption finalizes with webinars, podcasts, online coaching, and support groups that they can get access to with a push of a button. That's real services that can help their families. So why us? Because Adoption Options not only has the expertise, the experience, and the reputation, but we have been around for 37 years helping these families. We will hire the most talented staff to run Arise Adoption Academy, and especially experts in technology and marketing and evidence-based curriculum development. We delivered over 1,000 surveys to our adoptive families, and we had 300 returned to us, all stating that they needed some sort of one or more of these services, and if they could have had it when their adoption finalized, they would have felt successful. When we asked if they would pay for those services, 80% of those families said, yes, we need those services, we will pay for them. Over the next year, we plan to hire, develop curriculum, market the agency, and raise capital. We plan to start small. We plan to market to our 1,800 already existing adoptive families in our database and to our select community partners that we've already been working with to market Arise to their families. If we start small, we can evaluate timeframes and make sure this business is going to be successful. Imagine if Brian's family had access to Arise Adoption Academy at the time of his finalization. not only would they have felt successful in parenting, but they would have had support and real support systems that would have enveloped them so that they could have been successful. And Brian, guaranteed, would still be living in his family. $150,000 seems like a lot of money, but it's a drop in the hat when you think about how much it costs for children to return to the child welfare system. $7.8 billion. I'll say it again, $7.8 billion. It's a lot of money. What I'm asking for you today is $125,000 to help us start up this vital program. With your help, we can save families like Brian's, but the biggest piece, we can actually keep children from returning to the system. Thank you.